joined by my co-host and a special guest, Matt Minich, today from Chalk Talk. Matt, what's going on, bro?
Just waiting to get that first dub.
How you guys doing? We are all. Zim, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing really good, man. I'm so excited to get Matt Minich on here. If you guys don't know X's and O's, he has a great show called Chalk Talk here on the Cincy Jungle podcast. Please check that out. If you guys really want to get more in depth with football, me and Ace try as best as we can, but this guy actually knows a lot of cool, intricate parts of a football team. So make sure you check him out too. And I'm really excited to have you on here too, Matt.
Appreciate it. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, definitely follow him on Twitter at Matt Minich. And you also are a former coach as well, right? Me and Zim, we played football before, but you actually coached as well, correct?
Yeah. I coached for about a decade in Division 1 AA school, and then Division 3 as well.
Right. So as Zim alluded to earlier, he does a lot of film breakdown from this season. I know you haven't gotten all the way into it. What have you seen from this team? Because obviously week 1, this was a team that had us very excited. And then week 2 happened, and we were still excited on offense, at least in some areas outside of the offensive line. But from the defensive perspective, it was a debacle. Just say, like, if you could give your analysis on what you're seeing on film so far.
I think the linebackers kind of need to get on the same page. I feel that they're a little too slow to get into their gaps at times, and then they're also getting beat on the cutback. So there's not always the right guy there that needs to be in the right position for the cutback. You kind of seeing them catch up with some of that stuff. I know there was a play with Logan Wilson where he hit the hole that he should have, but he didn't hit it quite fast enough, and as a result, it ended up being a big play. So guys like Wilson, like Akeem Davis-Gaither, those guys are going to have to catch up to the speed of the game. And especially, I mean, you're coming from Wyoming, you're coming from App State. It's not quite SEC football, so right. Those guys are going to have to catch up a little bit with things. I think Bynes is good, but there's a reason he's not the guy anywhere. There's a reason right. that he was available. So hopefully those guys catch up and Pratt continues to develop. But I think that's the big issue on defense is with the linebackers. I think for the most part the D line's holding their own. Having a butt kicker. I didn't know if I could swear on this program, so that's why
you can. Go ahead. Feel free, bro.
Go ahead.
Drop
some F-bombs. Drop some shits. Come on, give it to us.
Getting Gio back, having a couple of ass kickers like Gio and DJ in the middle would definitely make a huge impact. But for the most part, the D-line's pretty much doing their job. They're just not really dominating, not really getting off blocks. I think that's an issue in pass rush as well. Is they're getting some penetration, they're pushing those guys back, but then they're not disengaging, and they're not using pass rush moves and getting off and actually getting to the quarterback on that stuff. So there's some work that needs to be done defensively. Getting healthy would be definitely a big boost there.
Yeah, right. It's funny you said that because you mentioned the defensive line not being the biggest problem, and a lot of people coming off of that game, the way that we just got ran on, a lot of people at least messaged me and said, "Man, I can't wait till we get Geno back. I can't wait till we get Mike Daniels back." But I thought, like you were saying, like some of the linebacker play was just hesitant, and Carl Lawson alluded to this over the weekend. You could speak to this. He said, "There's no way we can get a pass rush if we can't stop the run." How do you feel like those two things work hand in hand, or do you have any insight to what Carl's saying, I guess, in that aspect?
To some extent, it's a numbers game. You got to get pass rush opportunities, especially a guy like Carl. I think he works better if he's got a little time to set up the moves he wants to make. It. The inside hump move is a great one for him, but he's got to threaten guys on the outside enough to be able to get there. Now unlike a receiver, when you're trying to get open, you're really playing your own game with that cornerback. As an edge rusher, you're playing your own game with that offensive tackle. So yeah, there's definitely something to be said for that, and then getting him in those situations where they have to pass, that's going to be beneficial to those guys as well.
So before the show, we kind of were talking, Matt, and you said like Geno is kind of essentially, you didn't use this exact wording, but it kind of came off that Geno is kind of the engine to kind of get this defense going. Can you kind of talk to how he will fit in with the Mike Daniels, with the DJ Reader on this defensive line?
Yeah, I mean, look, he's the best player on the team when he's healthy. You know, like him and AJ, those are the best players on the team. Those are the guys that are Hall of Fame type talents. Geno is an all-decade team guy, so he can have a major impact. He's going to be taking up blocks for one thing. In the pass rush, he's going to draw more attention from those inside guys. It's going to open up opportunities for other guys. But even last year, when he didn't get as many pressures, as many sacks as we've seen him in past years, he was excellent against the run. I mean, he's the best run stopper they've gotten. Early in the year when they were really struggling, it was like, okay, can somebody help Geno out here? Because he's trying to do everything by himself. Kind of what I felt like about DJ last week. DJ Reader was out there by himself. So, it'd be huge to have those guys. I think, number one, when they run the 3-4 stuff, it's really a 5-2. So they need three defensive tackles to run that stuff. And when they had trouble last year stopping the run, that's what they wanted to be in. So if you think about it that way, if Mike Daniels is out and if Geno's out, like that room is getting pretty thin pretty fast, and all of a sudden you're throwing guys like Bledsoe in there that maybe aren't ready to go yet, like guys you want to be given nearly as many reps to. So it doesn't seem like it really shied them away from running that look, but you're taking the talent off with that. And I also think that defensive line is the most important position to have depth at. So like there's the old thing, and you hear kind of old school football coaches like me talk about running the ball and 2-yard gains, 3-yard gains in the first half. Those are 5-6 yard gains in the second half, because you can wear down your opponent doing that. And that absolutely works. But what makes that not work is when instead of having 4 good defensive linemen, you have 8. And you look at the opponent this week, the Eagles.
Really, I was just about to say that's what they do. We talk about that all the time. I always talk to Ace about when Philly went on their Super Bowl run. They did it through this rotation that is like I hadn't seen in a while, where they're just throwing billions of guys at you.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
yeah, absolutely. And the Bengals have been they've talked quite a bit about wanting to get Gio off the field, make sure they have him fresh and have him available in those key situations. I mean, that's what this is about. But you got to be able to have enough talent to be able to do that, and be healthy enough to be able to do that. I think that was a big part of why they spent so much money on Reader, because you've got Reader, and it's kind of one of those situations where in key situations, we're going to have both in the field. Maybe not in key pass situations necessarily, but in key situations, we're going to have both in the field. But we're always going to have one of them on the field. So then you always have that one really strong presence in the middle. I
think the loss of Josh Tupou is probably the biggest loss of this year, above Trey Waynes. I before, like when we had to go get Mike Daniels, I think we did a show on here one time too, and I kept on saying, bro, they got to get another 3-tech. They got to get and I don't think people were really hearing me, but it's just like, man, they will wear out really, really quick. And you're 100% right. Like, you got to have some beefy boys up front to stand it. Like, this is a long season. So,
yeah,
I love Covington, though.
It's 3 defensive tackles when you're playing in the 3-4 defense, and the 3-4 defensive, that personnel group was their second most common last year. They ran about a quarter of the time behind only nickel. Which is over 50% of the time they were in nickel. So, I mean, if you think about it that way, Josh Tupou was a starter last year. There were 3 starting defensive tackles. It's just, it's like your starting 4th receiver or your second tight end. It's a guy that's not necessarily seen on the depth chart as a starter, but he is getting a lot of reps. When you're doing different personnel groups on defense.
Yeah, for sure. Shout out to Douglas H in the chat for the donation. Everyone has kind of talked about you kind of being great at breaking down the offense. So we kind of talked about the defensive line and the linebackers. Walk us through essentially your thoughts on this offense, whether it's Burrow, whether it's the offensive line, run game, or what so have you.
Yeah, so a couple of things. I mean, like Burrow's doing some really good stuff, but I feel like he's not pushing the ball downfield enough. And I actually, Jake Liskow from Locked On Bengals, he and I did a live thing last night on YouTube, and it's still up on Orange and Black Insider if anybody wants to check it out. But we looked at some of the pass plays from last Thursday night, and the theme seemed to be that there were opportunities where, not that he should have been going for the long ball, but instead of throwing the shorter route, he should have been hitting some of those intermediate routes, and he wasn't doing it. And part of that's going to be time. Like even with the deep balls, he's getting them off. He knows he doesn't have a lot of time because of the protection. So that's a bit of a concern. Is like, can we stop with the 5-yard gains? Can we get the 8-yard gains? That's definitely something to look at. But then also the deep balls. So his touchdown pass to CJ Uzomah, that was a 23-yard touchdown, longest pass play of his career right now. That is the only pass over 20 yards that the Bengals have completed all year. They've got 12 attempts over 20 yards. That is the first one that they've completed. And that was a great ball. It was a great play design too. But, I mean, they've got to figure something else out with that. I think a lot of that is coming down to Burrow not really being on the same page with some of these guys yet. I don't have the exact number, but I think we can all kind of tell casually that a lot of these shots they're taking are rightfully to A.J. Green. And it seems like the ball's not always where A.J. thinks it's going to be. So A.J. had the hammy. He missed some time in camp. We saw John Ross got targeted twice, no catches on Thursday night. He missed some time in camp. And the guys that really seem to be on the same page with Burrow right now are the tight ends. It's Mike Thomas and it's Tyler Boyd. And those are guys that got a lot of reps with Joe Burrow and we're making, we're getting talked about during camp. So I wonder if he and AJ just aren't quite on the same page with each other yet. And, once that can come, like they're going to have a much better opportunity at that.
That's I did Locked On the other day, and I had an interesting message that I got through AJ, I guess, and he just attributed it all to timing, because I just wanted to ask him about like no separation. Like a lot of fans like myself, we're a little bit like, oh man, I told Aces, I said, man, I don't remember a game where AJ was blanketed that crazy like that. And so, but he attributed it to all just straight up timing. I have a 2-part question. My first part is this. Do you think what you were just saying about him missing on some of the intermediate stuff, and I'm talking about Joe Burrow, do you think that's just coaching telling him, hey, like, it's just your second game, work it in? Because Zach Taylor had an interesting comment today. They said, hey, well, he's not hitting on the long passes or something like that. He said, I don't care about that. I just want points. So you think that's part of coaching? Like they're just telling them, hey, look, like don't look downfield too often. Just take what the defense gives you. And then the second part of this question is this. Somebody is saying this, and I've heard this 8 times this week. Auden Tate, right? Converting to tight end. I have strong thoughts on this. Auden Tate, to do this late into a season, no OTAs, no training, nothing like that. Like this is the National Football League where you have to have a weight. It's like boxing. You have a weight class. There's so many different factors. If I get one more person telling me Auden Tate should go to tight end in the middle of the season, I'm going to lose my freaking mind. But that was my 2-part.
He needs to gain about 40 pounds for that to happen during this season.
Yeah.
See, people saw Waller the other night, and they're like, oh, there's Auden Tate right there. Auden Tate's Waller.
Yeah, well, I mean, Waller's in the 250s, isn't he? Like, Waller isn't small.
He's a big man.
I think Ingram might be a closer size comparison. But, yeah, look, the Tate thing, here's the thing about Tate. Like, what's the point of moving him to tight end?
Right.
Because if you want him to get into the 3-point stance and block and that type of stuff, you're better off with Ethan Carter, right? You're better off with Sample, with Ethan Carter, with some of these other guys. And if you want him for a matchup as a guy you can move around, you're not going to get anything different from calling him a tight end, because like look, like these NFL coaches aren't stupid. Like you can look at a depth chart and say, oh, this guy's a tight end, and that's what your personnel is. But actually, you know what? Perfect example. The touchdown to Uzama on Thursday night. They were in 13 personnel. All right. So they had 3 tight ends, 1 running back, and Tyler Boyd was the only receiver on the field. All right. The Browns had only 4 defensive backs. They weren't in nickel. All right. They were in a 4-3 defense because with that look on first down, you're expecting it to be a run to Joe Mixon. So they're bouncing it out that way. If you put Auden Tate in place of CJ Uzama, let's say, in that look, maybe it's nickel, and then all of a sudden you're not getting the same matchup you want. Unfortunately, Drew Sample wasn't exactly running away from the linebacker that matched up with him. But if now you're taking that guy and you're putting a better athlete there, Tate can get mismatches on his own by being huge. So that's cool. I mean, but personally, I'd rather split out Tate and let him do the jump balls with Denzel Ward. By the way, that's the thing I'll say about Green being blanketed. Denzel Ward is really good.
Yes,
and the thing about Denzel Ward is he's short, so you hit him with traditional AJ passes. You throw the ball up and you let AJ pull it down. And again, he and Burrow just weren't really in sync to be able to do things like that in that game. But yeah, Denzel's really good. What was the first part of your question? I covered the Tate stuff.
The first part was, you think that because I really wanted to address that. Somebody asked that or said something in the chat, so I want to make sure I'm not ignoring the people in the chat. Thank you guys for joining us this evening. Matt Minich on here talking with us. He has a show, Chalk Talk, so make sure you check him out on Cincy Jungle. But the first part was in correspondence with you talking about Joe Burrow throwing the short passes. Do you think that's a coaching thing where they're just telling them, hey, just take what's in front of you? Or is that just Joe Burrow being a little reluctant?
I think it's probably to some extent coaching, and I think it's a progression. I think right now they're worried about the protection, and they want him to see things and be able to get the ball off quickly. And he's just going to have to grow to the point where he understands when he has time and when he doesn't, and can get rid of the ball. But that's a tough proposition because it doesn't always come down to if they're sending a blitz or not. We saw on the first drive they had 3rd and 5 down by the goal line on a 4-man pressure, and literally he had 3 guys on top of him before he could get into his progression at all. So I think it's going to be him growing a little bit, but I think it is somewhat coaching that right now they want him to have success, even if it's not big play success, just to be able to get the completions, get confident, and then kind of take the next step as the season progresses. Now, here's one thing I'll say about Tate. Like, I just don't get calling him a tight end. I have no problem with playing him. And if you want to say that because, Sample did some nice things in that game, he does not look fast. And when he got the ball in his hands, he wasn't running away from guys. So you may have lost that dynamic at the tight end position with Uzama going out. So if you want to say, hey, let's play more 10 personnel, and Auden Tate's going to be in kind of an H-back type of alignment sometimes so he can block, I'm cool with that. I just calling him a tight end, it doesn't do anything for me because it's not going to change their personnel, and you're not going to put him in a 3-point stance at 220 pounds.
Okay. So in a way, I forgot the guy that said that. In a way, there is a scenario you could get what you want. I wouldn't mind them using them like kind of how they, but they were using Eifert like a wide receiver last year. So
pretty much, yeah. Honestly,
it was a tight end lined up like a wide receiver all year.
He's not as big, but if you watch Stanley Morgan in college, Stanley Morgan kind of plays like a big slot. He catches a lot of passes that are similar to some of the things that Eifert was doing in the offense. So, if you're replacing some of his role with a guy who's not actually a tight end, I'm cool with that. It's just the move to tight end doesn't really make sense because you're not really going to do it, I don't think.
Right. Agree. So elephant in the room has been the offensive line. I've seen you have some takes on the offensive line. Mainly, I think Billy Price and some other guys. It was announced today that Fred Johnson, after not a great performance on Thursday, is going to start again. What are your thoughts on this offensive line from what you've seen in terms of Jonah Williams, the right guard position, Xavier Su'a-Filo being out? Now they got Fred Johnson in there, Bobby Hart, obviously, and some of these other guys. What are your thoughts on that offensive line?
So in the first game, I thought the left side of the line was pretty good. I thought Trey underachieved for what we all know Trey can do. But I thought Michael Jordan was good, and I thought Jonah Williams wasn't perfect, but he looked like a guy that you drafted in the first half of the first round. The right side of the line was definitely a problem in that first game. And I think Xavier Su'a-Filo actually graded out pretty well, but I didn't think he played great. I was a fan of the signing. I thought that he made sense like schematically for them. Right. I didn't think he played very well. And I've had a lot of people tell me that Billy Price looked good when he went in. Billy Price did not look good. And I think right guard's a good position for him. I think it's his best position. He played well against the Dolphins last year when he started at right guard, but he didn't look good.
Did he look better than Fred Johnson, though? Did he look better than Fred Johnson this game, or is it just like?
I don't know. It was kind of different. I felt like Price is getting beat with speed off the ball. I felt like they were getting by him, whereas Fred's problem is his anchor. Gotcha. He's a big guy, and big guys have trouble bending their knees, getting low on things. So that was a big issue with Fred, and he's got enough bulk, like he could collect himself. He's strong enough for that, but I think he's got to get better at sinking his hips right away and taking that initial blow and not getting pushed into the backfield. He had two really bad plays. This is the worst thing about Fred Johnson is he had two really bad plays in the first drive, and Aikman caught both. Was it Aikman or whoever did the game? Like picked up on both of them. Right. So his name was out there. And
are you talking about the play? Are you talking about the play where he had a problem with the stunts? Like where he had and then it's like him and Bobby Hart are like it's like almost like a communication thing. So the one that I kept on showing everybody is this one. Everybody's like Bobby Hart lets him go through free, but it's a communication thing where they're both screwing up, and it's a stunt coming in. It's just like it almost looked like they had never done it before, like together.
Yeah, like the one that really got him was the strip sack. They put Myles Garrett inside, and he was lined up in the B gap, and that was the man side. It was actually it might have been a key blitz. They might have just blitzed because Gio stayed in, but they ran a twist. That guy showed hard in the A gap, and Fred bit like a bastard. And I get it. Like you're like, holy shit, I'm lined up in front of Myles Garrett. Like I get why, but that's what happened. He jumped it, and then he was way out of position when Garrett came back to the B gap. He wasn't looking for anything twisted at that point. He was just selling out, diving at his hip, trying to save Burrow's life on it, and then Gustin or something. Porter Gustin or whatever. I don't even know who that guy is. Yeah. Oh, we made him look like an all-pro though.
Bro, he had the biggest hits on Burrow on Sunday. That was the biggest hits, or Thursday.
Yeah.
But
so it kind of sounds like Matt that you can see why Fred Johnson would be in. Don't make me put words in your mouth, but it sounds like you can see why Jim Turner would put Fred Johnson in, because there's potential there if he's able to work on his technique in terms of getting lower, that we could see some better play from Fred Johnson versus a Billy Price who may just be out of his league when it comes to athleticism. And that's nothing against Billy Price. It's just, some guys are more athletic than others. Is that true?
Yeah, I think so. And the other thing is Billy Price, they've been trying to bring in they've been trying to teach UDFAs to snap. Like Billy Price's days might be numbered. Yeah, he's probably not getting a second contract.
No, definitely not.
They need a backup center though. So like people are always like, "Oh, cut Billy Price." No, because he's the backup center, and he's going to be the backup center if he's nothing else. Right. The other thing about Fred is, a week ago, people were saying, well, bench Bobby Hart, Fred Johnson. Like that's the guy.
But when he worked better at right tackle, and I think that's what people thought, not at him at right guard though.
I mean, he has the starting experience at left tackle, so he's got a little bit of experience there. He's got the length, which is good at the tackle spot, and you're not necessarily. I mean, you can still get the bull rushes, those hard power moves, but you get a lot of those at guard. But yeah, I mean, I think it does to some extent show you, like, all right, this is why we said he's not ready, but now he's going to get some time, and it looks like he's going to start again next week. Hopefully he gets better, and maybe he's a long-term answer. In the meantime, like I said, that first game, the right side was bad. The second game, the middle was bad. Michael Jordan's my dude, and I thought he was going to really develop into something. I was optimistic after the first game. Bad night, and Michael Jordan and Trey Hopkins missed a lot of blocks too. They didn't get called out on national television like Fred Johnson, but believe me, they had some big problems that night. Bobby Hart.
Right. Give it to him.
Like, for Bobby Hart, he was okay. And for Bobby Hart going against that defensive line, this is all I'll say. So if you get that effort out of Bobby Hart every night, if he plays like that, that's not the reason you're losing football games. Like, you can win with that if you're hitting on other cylinders, if you're doing well in other areas. That was peak Bobby Hart. For whatever that is.
It's almost like you said, like, especially when you're talking offensive line. If we don't hear your name, I'm assuming that you had a good game. And like you said, that's the first time. I love the fact that you brought that up too, that Troy Aikman pointed out Fred Johnson on national media, because as we know, Bobby Hart could go 8 games this season. Like, think about Bullock last week, right? They wanted to run Bullock out of town. Bullock has a perfect game, right?
Yeah.
We're not on Bullock anymore, right? Nobody's even mentioning him. Bullock's cool now, right? But let him miss a field goal next week. Like, that's what I think is happening to so many players in Bengals past. And I'm like, y'all gotta really like pay attention to the guys like Matt that actually like look at the film and are able to convey these type of things to you, because you can't just say Bobby Hart every week and just assume that Bobby Hart is the worst right tackle in America. We know he's not the level that we want, right? As a Bengals fan, but y'all got to pay attention. So I thought that was awesome that you pointed that out. I thought that is really funny though, that Jim Turner, remember he wanted to put Cordy Glenn at left guard last year. And that's the first time, I guess, in my mind, because you talk about like the height and these guys that get low and they bend and they got tremendous bend. When you're talking about inside, these big polar bears like working from the inside, like how do you feel about like these bigger guys like a Fred Johnson even working at right guard? Like, are other teams doing that, like traditional tackle size players playing at guard?
I mean, you got to have versatility. So I think most guys play a little bit of everything. If you're not the guy, Fred Johnson was playing guard for the Steelers on their practice squad before the Bengals swiped him up last year. And they've said that, and one of the indicators of it, and why we thought that Fred Johnson might get the start over Billy Price, is because when there was injury to Suafilo in camp, Fred Johnson was getting those reps. So we've seen that with Hakeem Adeniji, who they drafted as well, that he was getting reps at guard in practice also. So, like I said, tall guys have trouble bending their knees sometimes. So I guess there's a mechanical advantage to it. Fred definitely just needs to get better at that. But I don't know. I don't think there's any real reason not to do it. I think like a Jonah, I think you do want a little bit of more bulk, and Jonah kind of bulked up, but so more so than not wanting the height, I just want to make sure that somebody can kind of stand in there and take the hit a little bit.
So you've been a big Hakeem Adeniji guy. Just talk to me about like what you see from him. Is there a possibility that he will see the field this season, or is he more so like maybe a developmental kind of project guy?
I think he's probably a developmental guy, and I kind of look at Fred Johnson, And I think that, Identity is maybe that type of guy that maybe we'll see him later in the year. Hopefully we don't have to. I think he could probably, minus the surgery, but he could use an off season like Jonah Williams had and, recreating his body a little bit. He also had some problems with anchor in college, but he moves really well. Like, maybe not quite like Jonah, but like that, that's what you love about a guy like Jonah at tackle is how well he moves and how he can adjust to those speed rushers. So definitely saw some good things with that from him in college. Then in the run game too, like coming around, pulling around. So he does some good things in that area with his feet, and also he's I forget the source on this, but he's supposed to be like one of the smartest dudes that anybody met in the draft process. Like he's supposed to be like a really highly intelligent guy. And they seem to really value intelligence and guys that can move up front. So for me, throughout the draft process, I was like, well, this guy should be a Bengal if they can get him late. He makes a lot of sense with the things that they're trying to do. But I mean, like to really answer your question, it's tough without a preseason because I can tell you what he did against Oklahoma, but we haven't seen him against NFL competition, even NFL, third string competition.
Right.
So it's a big risk. He played one play Thursday night. He was the tight end on the power play that they ran on 1st and goal. He did not get to his down block on time because the guy kind of stunted. And that's the penetration that made Mixon bounce, and he lost like 4 or 5 yards in that play. So that was actually, he had one play and it was a bad play. And then I'm not trying to shut him down.
No, but you're calling it how it is because we all saw that play and we were looking at Mixon like, how did you bounce that out? And it's great that you're here to bring that up because everyone was pretty much putting that on Mixon. But it's funny that it may have been Adenji's fault on that one. Yeah,
so it was a power play. And so Adeniji was blocking down. The other blocks looked pretty good, but Adeniji didn't quite get there. So his guy got penetration. And that caused a problem for Michael Jordan, who's pulling around and is supposed to block that linebacker that showed in the hole. Gotcha. If Jordan leads up that hole, 99% chance Mixon follows him, and there's a very good chance he's in the end zone on it.
I looked at that play like so many different times though, and it just looks like he could kind of get on Michael Jordan's his left hook because Michael Jordan's going up right. I'm trying to replay it, but I kept on looking at that play over and over, like because they even showed the replay. I'm like, why didn't Mixon? Then it looked like Mixon could cut up and just go left, and then he tries to go around, and then like you're saying, the penetration is coming, so then he even backs up even further. But had he just hit and like went up left, like to like that,
I mean, it was kind of a wide power play in the first place because they had guys in the A gaps and B gaps. So that's why they didn't run a sneak. I was like everybody else, I was yelling at my TV, like just run a quarterback sneak. But I get why they didn't because what that defense was. So it was kind of a wide play. Kind of had like a C gap type of path on it. But like that's the problem. You got guys like Mixon, and Burrow's pick in the first week was the same sort of situation. Like when you have guys like that, like those guys want to win, like, and they want to be the guy. And when they don't have the opportunities, they're going to try and make opportunities for themselves. And sometimes you're going to hit on it, and sometimes you're just not. But that's why you need to put more talent around guys like that.
Right,
sure.
I go ahead, Ace. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I know that we're getting pretty close to this Philly matchup, so I kind of wanted to shift it there a little bit. We were talking a little bit earlier. Fletcher Cox is possibly that he's going to be out. It's pretty much a game time decision as of now. Did not practice. Several other guys didn't practice. Jalen Reagor was the big news that really came out. First round pick for them is expected to be out, I think 6 to 8 weeks, so he's not going to be in this game. What are some of the keys? And I'm not saying that you watch Philly that much, but what are some of the keys that the Bengals can use to bounce back in a game that may be somewhat of a must-win for this coaching staff and this Burrow era to keep the fans engaged?
Must-win for both teams.
Yeah,
facts.
And that's a big concern because, like, it all goes back to Belichick, right? Like the famed "we're on to Cincinnati" game.
Right.
They need to make a statement right now that they are not a get right team. This is not the team you want to play the next week when you need to get your shit together.
Right.
So they really need to come out firing on all cylinders there. Look, Wentz, he looks a little off. He's thrown 4 picks this year. One of them's a good defense that he didn't see the guy coming from the backside. It's actually somewhat similar to Jackson's pick where Baker never saw him coming. One was a tip ball, and then 2 were thrown to the field, and it was like a deep comeback or something, and the corner bit on it, and he's kind of hung it up there for way too long. I don't know. He's kind of in his own world a little bit. Like he's doing some weird things. For a guy that I think most people would have put in the top 10 type of conversation, he doesn't look like that guy right now. So the Bengals really need to take advantage of that stuff. Like defensively, I think they're going to be fighting all year. I don't think this is going to be the defense we want it to be.
Right.
So look, if you're doing that and you're going to give up some plays and you're going to give up some points, you need to create some opportunities for your offense as well. And especially you got a guy like Burrow. Like, let's get Burrow the ball. Let's get him. Hey, we screwed that up in the red zone because we've been screwing up a lot in the red zone. The red zone, percentage is not very good. Create another opportunity in the red zone with a turnover. That's how Washington got him. They kept giving Washington short fields in the second half, and Washington came back on them. So get some turnovers. Give Burrow some time. They got to complete a couple of deep balls. Like, they got to push the field and throw some deep balls. Burrow in his press conference today said that was an important thing for him. That was a focus for him. He was actually a little bit oddly forthright about that. Like when he was asked about it, he dodged it, like to not get involved in the game plan. But he's like, nope, I gotta hit those deep balls. Right. So, make some big plays on offense, make some big plays on defense. I guess that maybe a little oversimplified, but I think that's pretty much what it comes down to.
Yeah, I'm almost not to cut you off, Zim. I just wanted to say I'm almost wondering if it's because the Philly fans have been calling for it. I'm almost wondering if it's like a thing where Carson Wentz, where he's looking over his shoulder at Jalen Hurts, because there's been a lot of Philly fans, believe it or not. It's kind of crazy because obviously they just won a Super Bowl. There's the Nick Foles thing, and now there's Jalen Hurts. I'm wondering if he's possibly like looking over his shoulder now at Jalen Hurts, wondering if that's a possible kind of factor in that area with Philly. I think that may be something that he's looking at. But go ahead, Zim.
I just want to say I'm so glad we didn't draft Jalen Hurts. Like that's what. Hey, Matt, what are you drinking over there? Is that orange pop?
Yeah, that's Orange Crush. Yeah, there you go.
Hey, look,
twins.
Brand.
Hey, this guy fucking knows something, people. You see that? You can't be a Bengal if you're not bleeding orange with pop. Where's your pop at, Ace?
I had some. If you saw me earlier, I actually had some orange pop in this cup. This was not planned.
That's some simpatico stuff right there, people. Do you have anything like any keys to victory beyond that? I mean, you pretty much broke it down super simple. I don't really think there's much to the game other than the things that I think we've been looking at all year. Like you touched on some of those things. Like I would say Joe Burrow going just to the intermediate, like exploring like 10 yards, 12 yards, like those passes. Those are the ones that I want him to hit. I want him to be able to not be rushed with his throws, but I don't know if that's possible because this is arguably probably the second best defensive line that we'll see all year next to the Steelers. Arguably, like you could rank those 1 or 2 or whatever. Those are the 2 best defensive lines that we'll probably see all year. So a lot of people that are saying like, this is a dub because the Eagles are 0-2. There's a lot of things that don't line up really well for us for this game, and combined with the fact that they're hungry. So do you have any other keys to victory, I think, that you want to say? And then, Ace, you can close us out and tell us what your keys to victories are.
I mean, yeah, the Bengals O-line versus their D-line is a huge matchup, and if they can get some wins on that and manage to get out and complete some deep balls, I mean, that's going to be huge. I think it kind of interacts. So, number one, they're having trouble with deep balls because the timing's not great because they're trying to get the ball out fast. But they're also getting sacked. And then when you get sacked, now you're behind. And so now you're in a plus yard situation, more than 10 yards to go. And they're not getting since they're not able to throw the ball more than 20 yards down the field, they're having trouble converting those situations. So they've got to stay out of those 10+ yardage situations, whether it be from penalties, which, knock on wood, it hasn't really been holding. That hasn't really been an issue this year. It's been, more like false starts and stuff. And not just the O-line. CJ, John Ross committed false starts. They got to stay out of those situations with the sacks and the penalties that get them in the plus yardage. And they've really got to shore up the red zone offense. You look at that. Look, you got to score touchdowns when you get into the red zone, and you're not going to win a lot of games when you're not. So that needs to be an automatic. They need to stop kicking field goals from within the 20-yard line, and figure those things out and connect on a few of those things. But the goal line opportunities are kind of show you the same thing as the 10+. When they get behind, when they screw up the power play, when they don't capitalize, when Boyd drops the ball or they get sacked up, like things happen. And once they get behind the 8 ball, they don't have the ability to make up for those things. So the big plays aren't just about, hey, let's throw a 50-yard bomb to Ross and score a touchdown. It's, hey, let's complete more 20, 30-yard passes. So when we're in 2nd and 17, we're 3rd and 17 even. Like, we know we have the ability to convert that in one play and make up for some of those mistakes. Because they're going to make mistakes because the O-line is what it is. And Joe Burrow's a rookie, and sometimes going to hold on to it too long, and he's probably going to try and scramble and run back 30 yards, and we're all going to call him an idiot for that. But that's going to be what it's going to be. So they've got to learn to overcome those situations.
No, I think Matt made some great points. First of all, shout out to my nephew, Aaron Carr. Appreciate that donation. I think what you said is true. We've got to start hitting, like you said, those deeper passes. I really wanted to see that against Cleveland. That somewhat made me perturbed last weekend, or not last weekend, but last Thursday when they decided to bench Auden Tate, because there was ever a game to go 5 wide, it was last week against Cleveland. Like, that's been their Achilles heel.
Mm-hmm.
They're really decimated at that position. And I felt like you should have really gone at them 5 wide all game. I mean, it was their Achilles heel. This is another situation with Philly where it may be the same thing. I've heard them talking about them and the loss of Malcolm Jenkins. Huge for them last year.
Yeah.
They don't have him now. He went back to New Orleans. They've really struggled at that safety position. And like you said, that's where the Bengals need to hit them, is over the top. They also have Darius Slay, good corner. One thing I didn't like about the game plan last week is you got all of these corners out for Cleveland, and you choose to target one of the best corners in the league. Like, you don't go away from it. If it was me, I'm going at anyone except Denzel Ward, because all of these other guys, like Greedy Williams is out. Those are the guys that you need to target, the guy that came up from special teams for them. The Bengals need to do that this week. We also have to capitalize on the wide receiver position not being as strong. With them having a Jalen Reagor out, they need to blanket Zach Ertz and Deshaun Jackson. Those are the guys that you have to key in on. The other thing is, you can't let the running back go crazy like you did last week. I mean, Miles Sanders is a very capable running back. You don't want to let that get away from you this game. Obviously, they saw the Browns game like everyone else did. They're going to try to run the ball. The offensive line against the defensive line, we already know, Matt. Like you said, the game is won in the trenches. I mean, you can't have, Armani Bledsoe in there against Lane Johnson or any of those guys, Jason Peters. We've got to win there. We've got to get some kind of pressure on Carson Wentz and do what we can to try to get to him. And that's, to me, the keys of the game. Carson Wentz, he's already had probably the worst 2-game stretch of any quarterback in the NFL. We have to get on that. And if, like what Matt is saying, we're not going to be the best defense, this has to be a defense that can get turnovers and get the ball back into Joe Burrow's hands. And like he said, convert in the red zone. That's all I've got, Sam. What you got?
I can't follow up neither one of you guys. Like, I mean,
yes, you can.
Just let number 9 do his thing, bro. Like, I'm at the point, like, there's so many small things I think I could just kind of go through the whole game and just say, like, hey, look, we need to do this. And it just turns into a bunch of cliches. Like, keep number 9 upright, give him time, get a pass rush going, and make sure that, like early on in the game, like, I think it's very, very important to make Carson Wentz feel like he's been feeling. If you give him confidence early, he's going to show you that he is a top 10 quarterback.
Right.
And to me, that might be everything. Like, establish a lead early And I think a lot of the pressure is going to be off of like that Chargers game. I think they took their foot off the pedal a little bit in some of those spots when, if you saw like last week, they were playing from pure desperation. So you saw 5 of 5 on 4th down. So if they can get themselves in like how they controlled the Chargers game and they just gave them enough room just to come back, take the lead right at the end. And they almost came back and won. But if they can get themselves in a position where they have a 7-10 point lead, something like that, I think a lot of things that we're calling from a pass rush standpoint on defense is going to happen. Mixon then can now get put in situations where the pass game is just an extension of the run game, where you see little short passes like early on 1st down. That's been my thing. Like after the first game, throwing on 1st down is so big, but he's got to hit. That's why I'm so focused. Like I'm so glad that Matt said the intermediate game, because sometimes it's so like, especially when you go play Philly on 1st down, if they're just handing off the mix and they got 8-9 in the box with this line, it's just not set up for success yet. So for me, I would like to throw early on 1st down like all year, so that you're putting yourself in these like kind of like where you're keeping the defense guessing on 2nd down. So then you got these really short 3rd downs. I think that's really, really important for Joe Burrow, like year one, just all year, especially with a defensive line like this. So there's so many small things that I look at, but take it, like you said too, you hit it on it. Just take advantage of like the guys that just are not the guys. Like go after those guys. Make your strong points very, very strong. Like throughout. I know the first couple of drives are going to be like scripted or whatever, but like take the matchups. Let Joe just go and look and see what matchups do you like pre-snap and attack those all game. If somebody's weak, hit them all game. Like do that and let your players play. Don't overthink this crap. Like I think a lot of these weeks, especially week 1, they just overthought. Like I went back and looked at that game, the other game, like they just overthought like a lot of when they had the lead. There was some times where they could have really. It was Joe Burrow's first game, so I'm gonna give him the pass on that. But now that you just saw him throw 61 times, like they get a lead, don't play hesitant. Keep your foot on the gas and keep it the same. Keep that same energy. Keep that same energy. That's all I want to say. Keep the same energy.
Facts. So Matt, we want to thank you for joining us. This is Matt Minich. He has his own show, Chalk Talk. He also breaks down film, like he said, on the Orange and Black Insider YouTube channel. So be sure to follow him there. Get some great stuff. I also put a link to his video that he did with Jake. I was actually tuning into that myself, where you're getting, the best film breakers in the jungle, breaking this stuff down play for play. He also understands the game on a totally different level. So if you're an average football fan and you want to know the actual insight, Matt is the guy to listen to for sure. You can also find him on Twitter at Matt Minich, and that's MATTMINICH. So be sure to follow him there for the audio listeners. And Matt, we appreciate you having your time here with us, man. We appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Thanks a lot, guys.
Who
Yes, sir. Who dey?